will, as they remember that they have a Zoom event right now that they wanted to be in. These events are, they're easy to put on your calendar and then just as easy to kind of forget they were on your calendar.
Appreciated the reminder. Yes, I do. Yeah. I need some calendar, but I don't know where. Yeah.
Yeah, I need the reminders too. So thank you all for joining us. I'm Jamie Asai Fitzgerald, and I direct the Readings and Workshops West program, which covers California, Seattle, Tucson, and Houston. And I'm with my colleague, Ricardo.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ricardo. I oversee the Readings and Workshops program for the East. So that's New York and the 5 cities to the east of the Mississippi River. It's good to see you all.
Thank you so much for joining us. So I'm just going to talk a little tiny bit about poets and writers and our mission and our program, which helps to support literary events in your cities. And then we're going to do some introductions with the group here. And part of that will just be sharing your name, what city, indigenous land you are hailing from, I forgot one thing you love about your city, indigenous land, what you write, and if you're here representing an organization, group, or series. And so since I'm holding the talking stick, I'll do my own introduction. So one thing I love about my city, which is the city of Los Angeles, on the indigenous land of the Tongva people, is that we have wild parrots. And they have been coming through my neighborhood almost every morning for the last week or so, because I think because the palm trees have their fruit right now. And I think they like that. That's my guess. And I write poetry. And I'm here, of course, representing poets and writers. And if you don't already know, Poets and Writers is a national nonprofit organization. We serve creative writers. Our mission is to foster the professional development of creative writers, to help increase communication throughout the literary community, and to help make literature available to the widest possible public. One of the ways we do that is we operate the Readings and Workshops mini grants program. And this program helps support writers who participate in live public readings and creative writing workshops in diverse community settings. The purpose of our gathering today is to stay current with you. It's always nice to be able to meet new folks and to reconnect with writers and organizations that we've helped support in the past, and to empower you to apply for our funding, which we have available. And to do that, we are going to, a little bit later on, just kind of go over some of the key guidelines, and Ricardo's going to give you a sneak peek at our grant application just to help demystify the grant process and to show you how easy it is to apply if you haven't done so yet. So I think we're just going to go around. Ricardo is going to help us with introductions and call on folks.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So as we mentioned, we'll just go around the room. I'll start just for introductions. We're a pretty small group, so I'm going to try to follow the order on my screen. C, I did get your notes, so I will hold off and for your introduction at the end. But for myself, I'm Ricardo Hernandez. My pronouns are he, him. One thing that I love about my city, I'm actually joining you all from Brooklyn, which is the traditional territory of the Canarsie and Munsee Lenape nations. I live fairly close to Prospect Park, which is this massive, massive park in the middle, pretty much in the middle of Brooklyn. And I can hear the crickets at night when I leave my window open. And I wasn't expecting that because I kind of face a back lot and it's full of concrete, but it's been really beautiful now in the fall to still hear that. And that's something that's, yeah, it lulls me to sleep, and that's special and I love it. I write poetry primarily and emails. And I'm here, of course, representing poets and writers. The East Division, Jamie and I, as I mentioned earlier, oversee different divisions of the mini grants program. I see on my screen Bob Floor. So I hand the, what did you say, the talking stick, Jamie, over to Bob.
The talking stick, okay, the pen. I'm Bob Floor, and let's see, I manage a group called Pinoy Words Express Cultura Arts, which is a Filipino group that primarily promotes Filipino writers and poets and other artists in the Seattle area. The indigenous tribes here were primarily Salish, and closer to me because I live in Lincoln Park in the West Seattle area were the Duwamish tribes, from which Seattle drew its name, Chief Sealth, or changed to Seattle. I love Seattle because I was born here in the Central District, and I love all the cultures and all the dynamics that go on between everybody and that sort of thing. So what else can I tell you? I guess that is oh, so that's I do write poetry, and I'm also a playwright. So some of my plays weave poetry into them as well. So anyway, that's it, I think. Did I forget anything? So, oh, do I have to hand it off?
Sorry, Bob, I was posting something in the chat. Thank you so much.
Oh, okay.
Cynthia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Okay. I'm Cynthia Miller. I'm in Tucson, Arizona. I'm actually a visual artist. I work mostly in painting, and I'm part of a group called POG. And we are a reading, presenting organization, mostly poets and writers, occasionally perform, but primarily poetry. And we've been doing it since 1986, I think it goes back to, I think, off and on, mostly on. We did move to Zoom, of course, when things got dicey. Still some Zoom. People don't want to leave their houses, so we're accommodating. Tucson, oh my goodness, where do I start? One of my favorite things here, the birds. We get the migrating birds, but we also have our own varieties of desert birds. It's so fantastic, and they have so much to say. I have a family of Harris hawks in my yard. Let's see, traditional home of the Hohokam, prehistory wise, we don't know what they called themselves, that's what we call them. And now descendants, the Pima and the Tohono O'odham, and the Yaqui Indians since the 70s, when they were seated here, coming out of Mexico and recognized by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Reina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Ait sgwel CM o helixen quanasatlet yekai saweltana sanasnet chlamisen. My name is Rena Priest. I'm the Poet Laureate of Washington State, and I live in Bellingham, Washington, on my ancestral homelands. I actually live on a village site that was burned at the signing of the treaty, and that was my people, the Tlachtamish people, or the Lummi people. So we're still here, we're contemporary, we live and work and thrive here. Let's see, something what is it, something I'm enjoying about it? The turn of the seasons, and I think that it's sunny today. Still, the sun's still hanging on.
Thank you so much. Hi, Katie. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, she's muted.
Hello. Yeah, I'm from Tucson, Arizona as well, and I believe on the sacred lands of the Tohono O'odham. And I am also the vice president of the Arizona State Poetry Society. And Rena, I'm recently part-time over in Washington, so from Port Townsend. I write poetry and have a new chapbook out, so I'm trying to promote that, which is the reason I'm here today. Marketing is hard. It's so difficult to do it, so any help I can get, I'd really, I appreciate, and I plan to take a lot of the information back to the Arizona State Poetry Society. So thank you.
Thanks, Katie, and congrats on the chapbook. Tara, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Tara Betts. I'm here in the city of Chicago in the lovely state of Illinois, which, to my understanding, has been the home of at least 5 Native American tribes that comprised most of the state. And I don't even remember all of the names. I know Ho Chunk is one of them. The state is named after Illinois or the Illini. Shawnee and Chickasaw, Fox, Winnebago, like it's so many of them and they've been moved around so much. I think that's part of the legacy of that. But as far as where I'm doing a lot of my work, I'm a poet and I've published a couple books of poems, and I just started a nonprofit here on the south side of Chicago called the Whirlwind Learning Center. So we're trying to do, thank you, Ojibwa. My friend Andrea Change just posted them too. But we're trying to do a range of programming, not just to promote literacy but to also get people to hone their critical thinking skills, think about how they can do that through literacy and literacy-based activities. And I've done reading series in the past, but never through my own nonprofit. It was always through someone else's. So I'm kind of excited about the prospects of doing that. And is there somebody I can pass it to? Did I miss? Did everybody go on my last?
Not yet, but thank you, Tara. I think on my screen it's Andrea. Andrea, sorry.
Okay.
Apologies for arriving a little late. What are the questions again? I sort of have a feeling, but
Sure. We're doing introductions, so you can share your name and pronouns, one thing you love about your city or the Indigenous land you're joining us from, what you write, and if you're here representing an organization, a group, or a series.
so I am Andrea Change, she, her. I am from the lovely, lovely city of Chicago. One of my favorite things about Chicago is Chicago in the summer. We need 9 days in the week in the summer because they literally is something happening culturally every day. The richness of Chicago's culture scene is constantly understated and underrated. Even in the fall and winter months, it's pretty active. But if you're ever here in the city of Chicago, hit me up. There's music, theater, dance, poetry, lit, storytelling, tap dancing, dog walking, dancing, you name it. There's like a lot of activities going on in the city. So my favorite is Chicago in the summer in general. it's the best city in the world as far as I'm concerned for that. I am here representing my organization, which is the Guild Literary Complex. We're a performing literary arts organization. A lot of our work is poetry centric, hence poets and writers, but we do other things with regard to storytelling, fiction readings. We have a series that we do called Palabra Puro, which is a bilingual Spanish language series. That's something that's near and dear to my heart. Although I got to tell you, my Sesame Street Spanish is not enough to get by when I'm sitting in on the program, but I'm at the point now where I understand a lot of what's being said. Can I speak it? No. But we've been able to take advantage of some of the micro grants with poets and writers in the past. Specifically, I think we brought Luis Rodriguez, who is sort of a native of Chicago, but now living in LA. He was a transplant from LA to Chicago and now living back in LA, but we were bringing him back for a reading. I'd like the opportunity to utilize poets and writers more often. I don't think they're as represented enough in the Midwest as I would like them to be. So, and I'm going to challenge you both, since you're with poets and writers. It's hard to navigate the website to get to where those grants are located. I literally have had to bookmark it a couple times. So, because once I found it, it was like, I gotcha. And so I know where to find it. The other thing is I try to encourage people that I'm interacting with to sign up to be on your directory so that it's easier for me to book them through the grants process, specifically for like readings and such. So it's a double-edged sword. It's something that we have to do on our end to sort of encourage the use of it, those micro grants, but also to get other writers to take advantage of the fact that they can utilize that for funding for other events and things like that. So I think it's not a best kept secret, but I think that for those who know, they know. But the ones who don't know, you know, it's sort of like they need to be educated about it. And I am a poetry writer and sort of focusing on memoir poetry, and sort of been dabbling a little bit in storytelling for my own personal work. And that's something that I'd like to sort of work on in general. And I would also encourage poets and writers to spread the word about residencies, because that's something that is hard to sort of get information about as well. Because I know that a residency certainly would help me out. And while there's plenty of here in the, well, I won't say plenty, but there's some here in the Chicagoland area, an opportunity to sort of be out and away from home is always a good time to sort of get to write. Is always good. So that's my 2.5 cents.
Thank you so much. C, you are on my screen, but Sonia, would you like to introduce yourself? If not, it's totally fine. I'm happy to move to the next person.
That's fine. No, thank you. I will go ahead and introduce myself. I'm sorry, I was just super busy and traveling, so I'm having the meeting on the phone. But hello, everyone. My name is Sonia Ponce. I'm not affiliated with any organization. I am in Detroit, Michigan, and am thinking of starting a poetry series. And so was just interested in some possible funding opportunities. And so when this came across my email, I thought I would take the opportunity to learn a little bit. As I said, I'm in Detroit, Michigan, and we have this is actually, I've heard you guys online saying, oh, I love Los Angeles and I love Chicago. And I just got to tell you, I think Michigan is the most beautiful state in the union. But I guess we all probably think our home is the most beautiful place. But here in Michigan right now, fall is upon us, and we are beginning to see the changing of the colors. And that's one of the most beautiful times of the year here in Michigan is fall. And in Detroit, I guess there's just, all sorts of things that I could say that I love, but I think the interesting things that people may not know about Detroit is that we have wild pheasant that just kind of walk around the city. I think the other thing you asked about was pronouns, just she, her, hers. And I'm just here to listen and learn. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much, Sonia, and welcome. ML, I see ML Liebler. Would you like to introduce yourself? You're muted, ML.
While he's unmuting himself, I'm going to say, hello, ML, how are you? He's a fellow Detroiter.
ML, you're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There we go.
All right. I can't find I don't know why. Anyway, hi, Sonia. How you doing? It's good to see that you're here. And nice to meet the other folks here. So I run a bunch of different programs in Detroit and series. Ricardo probably knows that, maybe too much. But I'm right now the president of the Detroit Writers Guild, and teaching at, of course, Wayne State University, and doing a lot of literary programming at every place from Third Man to the Aretha Jazz Cafe to, gosh, I come up with all kinds of things that I actually started through Poets and Writers. One is called Poets and Pies. We do that at the downtown library and at some of the suburban libraries where we do readings and people have pie and coffee and listen. Sometimes I think they just come for the pie and coffee, but that's okay. We want butts in the seats. So, but anyway, that's enough, isn't it, Ricardo?
That sounds good. Welcome, ML. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
I think we just have one last introduction. See if you're ready. Let me know.
Yeah, I am. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Sorry to be operating by the phone. C here, pronouns not she. I am currently on unceded Duwamish land, otherwise known as Seattle, in a very noisy space because I'm in transition. I am a hybrid poet writer. I just consider myself a writer, but poetry is my first love and the portal in. I am not represented in an organization other than my own organization, I suppose, but it's not a poetry affiliated organization. I'm in the healing arts as well. So a lot of the offerings that I do are centering healing of BIPOC folks at their intersections and the arts. So a good mentor friend told me about this and I said, okay, I'm here to listen. So really excited to hear about the things that others are offering and to listen about this process. So thank you.
Thanks so much. I think, I don't believe I've missed anybody, but I think Mercury is still in retrograde. So if I have, please feel free to unmute and introduce yourself. Going once, going twice. I know Opal left, so maybe when Opal, if Opal was able to come back, we'll introduce. But if not, Jamie, I'll hand the mic back to you.
Okay. Mercury is always in retrograde for me. So I am gonna just kind of go over some of the sort of key points about the mini grants or micro grants. You guess from the name that these are small amounts, but small amounts can make a big difference to individual writers when they get paid for things that they often don't get paid for. So the grants are $50 to $350 for a reading and $50 to $500 for a creative writing workshop. And the $500 workshop grants usually are multi-session workshops. We try to think of it as about $100 per session. So 5 sessions for 500, but this is somewhat flexible, and it also just depends on how much money we have and how many applications we have during that period of time. So the other key point to remember about the program is that writers don't apply for themselves. An organization or group or event coordinator must apply on behalf of the writer. Nonprofit status is not required. We have all kinds of groups and individuals applying for our funding. It helps to have a name. So for instance, if you have the Whirlwind Reading Series or something like that, you could apply under the reading series name. We are pretty flexible about what constitutes an organization. The funding goes to the writer as a check for writers' fees. So it doesn't go to the organization directly, and it can only be used to pay writers. The other key thing to keep in mind is that we are continuing to fund virtual events as well as in-person events. We've always funded in person, and during the pandemic, we started to fund virtual events because that was all anyone could do safely. And so we're going to continue that practice for the foreseeable future, which I'm really happy about. So now on our application, you can select, whether your event is in person, virtual, or even hybrid. The other thing to remember is we do not require a match. We used to, in some cases, in certain areas in California specifically, we used to require that the organization match our grants, but we no longer require that. Although we do encourage it because we want writers to get paid as much as possible. I think I got most of sort of the big ones. Oh, I forgot. We need to get applications about 6 weeks in advance of the event date. So there is no fixed deadline. It's a rolling deadline dependent on your event dates. So you can apply one at a time for grants, or if you're a really good planner and you have a whole series lined up, you can apply all at once. And we do ask for a separate application for each writer, since these are individual grants for writers. I think that covers most of the big things. So if anybody has any questions, we will actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to give you a sneak peek at the application so you can see what it looks like and how easy it is. It is easy, but there are a few little hiccups along the way. But if you can get past some of the little technical hiccup in our application, which we're working on fixing, it is not a complicated application to fill out, just basic event information. So Ricardo's just going to give you a real quick peek at that, and then we will answer questions.
Thanks, Jamie. So I'm going to very seamlessly share my screen, and actually, just to start us off, show you all where to find our application guidelines from pw.org. So when you open up the main page, you want to head over to the header bar and look for programs and partnerships. Before this read readings and workshops, but it is now actually underneath the programs and partnerships banner. So you want to click to readings and workshops. The page will load, and the application guidelines is this little red button. click there. And once you've reached the application guidelines, if you click directly on the apply button, it will actually take you to our grant system login page. The full guidelines and some of the key points that Jamie mentioned already are actually a little further developed in below as well, including the guideline ranges and eligibility. We also put together a couple of toolkits to help both the sponsoring organizations, whom, as Jamie mentioned, are the ones that we ask submit application. So if you click on the toolkit for applicants button, you'll actually get a 3-page sort of very compressed summary of our process from start to finish. So who can apply, the benefits of applying. There are links back to the guidelines as well and our frequently asked questions page. And what I very much enjoy is, or what I recommend a lot of people is the application checklist. Like Jamie mentioned, it's not a complex application and it's basic event details. So that's all here. It's a quick little checklist and also just a summary of the process on how to apply. So I'm going to go back here. So let's say I'm an organization, I'm ready to apply for the Whirlwind reading series. I would have to register my organization first, and that's going to be on this right-hand side. But once I've done that and I've received my password to log in and I've set up my account, what I'd have to do is just enter my username of the email that I registered with, my password. I click log in. This is our main sort of dashboard for you as a sponsor. You have the ability to create applications, see applications you're currently working on, or even past applications you already submitted, as well as reports. So let's say in this instance, I'm going to create a new application. One of the first things, and this is just like there's no guidance in that first moment. And it's one of the things that we're actually working on is making sure that when people get here, they can sort of very easily navigate to the different sections of it. But something you do have to do is just click to save your draft, kind of stamps it and makes the application real. And then it's a tabulated form. So you would move left to right. So the first tab is just your profile, that is the organization's profile, your contact information. The next tab over to the right is the event tab. Anything that has a red asterisk is required. And so you'll actually also, if you could refer back to the PDF of the toolkit for applicants, a lot of this information, this is where you would input it. Whether it's a poetry, fiction, or creative nonfiction event, whether it's a reading or a workshop, like Jamie mentioned, we have included a question as to what kind of event format you're hosting. If it's in person, if it's virtual, if it is a virtual event, we just ask for an event URL. So sometimes people will share their Zoom login, the link to join on Zoom or an Eventbrite page, so on and so forth. The next tab over is the site tab. So this just lets us know not the website of your event, but the actual venue that it will be held. The dates tab records the number of sessions that you'll be applying for. So that's where those grant ranges come in. If you're doing a reading, you would enter the session in this page. Likewise, if you're going to be doing a reading and a workshop, you just want to make sure that both of those sessions are recorded in this page. The next tab over is the writer's information. So like Jamie mentioned, we ask that you submit separate applications for each writer. Sometimes it's helpful to think about this as a check request form. So what you would enter here is the information of the writer that you're applying for. At the bottom, you will see that there is a place to provide a short bio, and that's just a quick eligibility check. We just need a publication and or performance credits in the genre that the writer will be presenting in. So for instance, if I'm a poet, if I'm bringing in a poet for my reading series, I would just include Jamie has been published in this anthology or has featured at this stage. And then last but definitely not least is the request tab. So this is where you just let us know how much you're requesting on behalf of this writer. Below that is the amount that the sponsor will provide, if any. We don't require it anymore, but we definitely encourage it. And then finally, the authorized tab, where we just ask for a signature from the organization contact. And that's it. It's a tabulated form. Just want to go back to the original feedback we got from Andrea, where we're working on the application. It is definitely not intuitive, but we're finally making headway. And so I imagine that we'll be seeing changes in the near future. But I think that's it. I'm gonna just stop the screen share here. And I do see Katie, your hand is up. And let me just admit someone. But yes.
So what would be the guideline for how much you offer? I mean, why isn't every organization going to kindly ask for 350?
Well, we do have a cap, a per organization cap, which is annual. And it's a flexible cap. So we try to give up to $500 per year per organization. Sometimes we go over that, depending on what the event is, how many applications we have, how much money we have remaining. We have a total, this year we have a total of $28,000 to grant to our cities. And we have already granted about 10,000 of that out. So we've got about 18,000 left for the rest of the fiscal year, which goes from July to June. So the cap is small. I am aware of that, but it's a way to ensure that we think equitably about where the money is going, and we also want to fund as many organizations as we can in our cities. So sometimes people will apply for, you know, two $75 grants for a reading, for instance, or if they're a group that's holding a special workshop, you know, they might apply for the full $500 multi-session workshop grant. Or if it's a huge festival and there are, you know, 20 writers participating, we probably can't support every writer. So they might apply for a few key events associated with the festival. Those are just some examples of the way, as an applicant, you can think about how to use the money. And oh, I will add that if you're thinking about applying, say you have a series or you have an event that you want to do, and you're not sure, you know, how much in grants you'll be able to get from poets and writers, that you can always call or email either me or Ricardo, depending on what city you're in. And we really actually appreciate hearing from you before you apply, because that's really helpful sometimes in, you know, making sure you don't do more work than you need to do. And it helps us think about where our funding is gonna go.
Well, my sense is, I mean, it's the first time I've done this, try to get a grant for readings, but I can see that there might be some larger organizations that would have many people ask them to be sponsors. But in most cases, in my case so far, it would be more like a you know, a bookstore or something like that. I can tell you in Tucson, between ones that have been closed down or whatever, the chances are probably pretty good that no one is going to ask them to sponsor this grant. So in that case, you would say they could ask for the 350?
Yes, you can
Okay.
always ask for the maximum amount. Whoever's applied can always ask for the maximum amount, and we will grant what we can. That's kind of the answer is, you know, if you're unsure about if you can apply for the maximum amount, you can always ask for that amount.
And if you're short on money, if one asks for 350, when you say, well, we would if we could, but we can give you 200.
Yes, that would
Okay.
be the situation.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know, Ricardo, did you show the writer email template? I think that might be helpful for writers who want to encourage a group or organization to apply for them. We have a template on our guidelines page that has language that you can use, edit, you know, as you see fit, but it has all the sort of nuts and bolts of what the organization needs to know in order to start the application process with us.
Oh, that would be very helpful.
Yeah. I think we're
Yes,
put the link
yes,
in the chat. Yeah.
I didn't show it, sorry, but I am sharing the link to the file itself in the chat now. If it's helpful, I'm happy to put it on the screen, but I see Reina's hand is up and I think has a question.
Yeah, so I got a fellowship from the Academy of American Poets to collect a salmon anthology, an anthology of salmon poetry, and I'm really excited about that. I'm starting to read submissions now. The deadline is October 1st, but I wanted to do a series of readings where we do installations. I'm going to select some that are like place-based to try to do installations in parks or along rivers, salmon-bearing streams, where poets have written about that particular place. And I wanted to see about matching. So the matching part of it, I wonder, the fellowship was to me personally, but it is from the Academy of American Poets. Would they be listed as the match person? And then also the amount requested, like if I'm not paying the money to the poet, but paying for the installation, the plaque or the art that's going to be there, does that count as the match, or is that like a totally separate thing?
That would be a separate thing. That would be an in-kind
Okay.
contribution, but the match would be cash payment to the writer, anything that's cash payment to the writer. But like I said, we don't require a match, so you don't even have to put anything there. You can just put 0. But if you are adding to the fee for the writer, then you would put that there.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
would like to pay like as much as I can for, you know, if the art's gonna like be there and they're gonna do a reading and dedicate it or whatever. So
Congratulations
thank you.
on the Academy grant. That is amazing. And your project sounds really cool too.
Thank you. So they would be the sponsor or the matching organization, probably, yeah.
Well, would you be the one applying for the writers that you're featuring?
Yeah.
Then I would say that you might want to apply under the name of the event
Okay.
itself or under the name of your project.
Okay.
Those could be some options.
Cool. Thank you.
we have a few more questions. Jamie, Cynthia, I see your hand up.
I don't have a question. I think her project is terrific. I think your project is terrific. And I would talk to like the public art people in your city, because this is a public art project. Or, other, whether it's, if something takes place in a park, it could be the park funding it. I mean, I think that you have a terrific idea. Yeah. That happened here a little bit on Mountain Avenue, and Ophelia Zepeda was able to get some of her poetry engraved on big rocks on the side of the sidewalk. So you read it as you walk along. Terrific program. Yeah. So that's all. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes in the Seattle area or Washington, there are other arts organizations that you can get a match from, like Artist Trust, or if you're in the city or the county, some of them have arts organizations like For Culture or Seattle Arts, and they have small grants that you can put together. I've done that before as a match. So those are good to keep be aware of. Yeah. I was going to say, could you talk a little bit about the follow-up, the reporting, because that's something that a lot of caught me off guard a little bit sometimes, that you have a particular process that you form and that kind of thing that is a requirement. And I think everybody should be kind of aware of that.
You want to talk about it, Ricardo?
Sure. So I can actually, I'll circle back to the writer template. I know I shared the link, but I just can also actually show it to folks. But Andrea, I don't know if you had another question. I'm happy to try to answer it before I go to the presentation.
Sure, I'm sorry. And it's sort of not connected with the topic that Robert just brought up, but with regard to the writer's application, how long is that process? So for example, if I have an event and I'm 10 weeks out, or if I'm lucky enough to be 10 weeks out and planning, and we want the writer to be able to be funded from a mini grant, but they're not on the directory yet, how long does that take for them to apply?
Oh, okay. So it's not a requisite for a writer to be listed on the directory, on our PW directory, to receive our funding. We're happy to connect you with our colleagues. So once you submit as a writer submits an application, if they haven't heard back or something, we can always refer to them. But yeah, that's actually something that's come up before. So just a clarification, you don't need to be listed on PW's directory to receive funding. All we would need in that instance would just be a short writer's bio for that person that just gives their publication credits. And just for clarity, if they've had work anthologized, poems online, or I always go to poems because that's where my heart lies, but any work that's been published online, that would meet the criteria. I do know that for the directory, it's a point system, and it's a little more thorough. But again, my colleagues are always happy to just follow up with folks who maybe have submitted applications. I think that's the.
Yeah, my other question was, is there a limit to the number of mini grants you can get in any given year?
Yes, so for the cities that we fund, it's $500 per organization per fiscal year. So just thinking of the ranges, if it's $50 that you would be asking, that's about 10 grants that mini grants that we could support. People budget differently under that cap. And again, the caveat that we brought up earlier, which is like that 500 cap is flexible. So it's not like a hard cutoff. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. So I'm going to pull up just first the writer template so folks get a chance to see it. And then I will move to the report form, which I will also pull up here. forgive me for the dead air right now. I'm actually trying to get out of my real account and go into the test account. Here we go. Okay. So to find the template for writers, if you didn't get a chance to grab it from the chat, you would go to readings and workshops, go to the application guidelines, and this is where we've placed these. So the template for writers is the last one. If you click there, you'll see the context that we were mentioning. So we're just providing this as a service to encourage writers to just send those first, initial contact with an organization to ask them to apply. People are welcome to just, take these options and rewrite them as they see fit. But we just thought it would be helpful to have one place where it could sort of summarize everything. These are downloadables, so you can always save them into your files or print them out, share them digitally. Okay, so I'm going to close this, and then we're going to pop back into the test account for grants. And like Robert mentioned, we do have a reporting requirement. So what we ask, both the sponsoring organization and the writer who's received the grant are asked to fill out a very brief form. The system sends out automatic reminders to both. I'll show you the sponsor report. So in this instance, let's say I need to complete my report for this grant. Forgive the test name, just says blah, blah. But it's a very simple short form. At the top, you'll see the details pertaining to your grant. Below that, it's just a couple of questions that let us know about your event, who attended, how many people attended, to describe the event. Anecdotes are specifically helpful. We often use these to let people know that the events that are happening in their areas, we use that to report to our own funders. And I will say that at the bottom of here, there is a signature. Sometimes people miss that, but there is a signature at the bottom. That's the form for sponsors. Now, I'm realizing that I don't have the writer one, but I can quickly pull that up to also show you all. I'm just going to stop my share for a second and give me 1 minute. The report for writers is very similar. Likewise, we ask folks to just let us know, how was the event? The question there that's very important is we do ask writers to just let us know whether they've received their grant check. Let me see. Here we go. And I'm going to share a report for an upcoming, I'm not going to scroll up because this is a real report for an event we funded, but it's very similar to the sponsor one. We asked the writer, where you pay the correct amount. And of course, the detail that I realized we didn't mention earlier is that nowadays that we're doing virtual events, we are actually sending checks after an event has taken place. So if you received PW support before the pandemic, grant checks were sent to the organization in advance of the event, but now things are just mailed directly to writers. But very similar questions. Let us know who attended, how was the event, the impact of the grant. Both the writer and the sponsor are able to actually also share publicity samples and photos, and just a quick signature and date to submit the actual report. Okay.
And I'll just add that I think sometimes reports seem like a little extra bureaucratic step in the process, but we really value the feedback that we get in the reports. It's like your chance to talk to us and to tell us about your event. And, we love to get those details because we can't be at all the events that we fund. So it's really a lot of fun when people submit, reports with funny stories, or, this crazy thing happened on the way to the bookstore, that kind of thing. And we share, oftentimes we'll share some things from the reports in our staff meetings and at our events and in our e-newsletters. So we really do put a lot of, it's kind of the fun part of administering the grant program is getting to read your reports. So I think we're on now to any last questions or any community events that you want to share, things you have coming up that you might want to share with everyone. Is we have 3 more minutes.
If
Yes.
you're in Washington, submit a salmon poem to the anthology. I'd love to read it. You have until the 1st.
I used to live in Seattle, so I can't submit, but
I had a question that I asked earlier, and I was wondering, you said 6 weeks in advance. Let's say you're applying for something that you maybe want to start in March of 2023. Is that too far ahead of time?
no, it's not too far ahead of time. The earlier you apply, the better, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, because we do try to be as democratic as we can with, how long we've had the application, how early you applied, while also, weighing other factors. So it helps to apply early.
Cool.
Yeah.
And one other thing, I don't know if it sounded like we kind of covered it. Ricardo kind of answered the question in part, but is there a format that you prefer if the poet is not, or the writer isn't in the directory for that description of their work? Is there a particular format, or is it just
There's no particular format, just a brief bio that lists the writer's either publication credits and or performance, spoken word performance credits.
Cool.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or?
I'm gonna actually share one thing that might be helpful regarding bios. Because we do maintain a frequently asked question page. And the reason I'm putting it in the chat, and also we'll segue into your community sharing, is if you have any links to events that you want to share, please drop them in the chat, because we are going to be sending just a copy of it as well as an attendance roster. So it'll be another opportunity to get eyes on your events. And I'm also going to link to our frequently asked question page for the posterity. Yes.
Posterity. And if you don't have events, if you just want to put a link to your organization or series in the chat, that is welcome as well. So we are currently looking at applications for events taking place starting in mostly November at this point. But if your event is happening a little bit earlier than that, like I said, you should always feel welcome to reach out to either Ricardo or to me to see if we can still take an application. That's a little bit late. And I think that's it. That's our time. I so enjoyed meeting Andrea and Katie and Tara and ML and C, and I know I've talked to you already, Bob. It's great to see you again, and Raina.
Yeah. And you guys have always been helpful. I have to tell everybody that. especially if you forget your password, which I seem to regularly
Yeah.
lose.
Pass- Passwords we get a lot of password questions, so don't feel shy. If you have password troubles, you're not alone.
Right.
So I think with that, Ricardo, unless you have any last words to share, we will hope to see applications coming in from all of you. And feel free to spread the word to any writers and organizations who you think would be interested in applying for their events, because we're always looking to reach new folks, and especially reach writers of color and organizations that work with special groups like at-risk youth, seniors, immigrants. So please feel free to share our info widely.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll send, Ricardo's going to send a roster and the chat out in the next week or so.
Thank you.
Good to see everyone.
Much. Take care, everybody.
Have a
Nice to
great
meet you
evening,
all.
everyone. Thanks so much.
Thanks for coming all. We did it.
Piece of cake, right?
Yeah. I'm going to stop the recording.